Cowboys add new WR amid George Pickens OTA absence. George Pickens was nowhere to be seen when the Dallas Cowboys opened OTAs, but that wasn't the development that quietly changed the conversation around the team's receiving core. Instead, while much of the attention naturally focused on Pickens' absence, Dallas made a move that could end up becoming one of the more interesting under the radar stories of the offseason. The Cowboys added wide receiver Romello Brinson to their 90-man roster, creating a new competition in a receiving room that suddenly has more questions than many people realize. At first glance, Brinson's arrival looks like a routine roster transaction. Undrafted players are signed every offseason. Teams bring in additional competition for training camp. Most of those names never become major contributors. But what's interesting here isn't necessarily the signing itself. It's what the move says about how Dallas is approaching the receiver position heading into a season with legitimate expectations. The timing also matters. The signing came after veteran receiver Paris Campbell retired, leaving an opening in the room. Rather than simply carrying on with the existing group, Dallas moved quickly to add another player who offers a specific skill set. Brinson enters the organization after finishing his college career at SMU. During his final season, he recorded 43 receptions for 638 yards and 3 touchdowns. He later spent time trying out with the Miami Dolphins but was unable to secure a contract. Now he gets another opportunity. And while his production numbers may not immediately jump off the page, the scouting reports surrounding him help explain why Dallas was interested. Evaluators have described Brinson as a receiver capable of stretching the field vertically. They have praised his ability after the catch and pointed to his willingness as a blocker. Those traits matter for players trying to earn roster spots at the bottom of an NFL depth chart. Versatility is often just as important as raw talent. Coaches want players who can contribute in multiple situations. They want receivers who can block in the run game, create explosive plays when opportunities arise, and provide value even when targets are limited. That's where Brinson's challenge begins. The Cowboys aren't bringing him in with expectations that he immediately becomes a major contributor. Instead, he's entering a competition where every practice rep matters. His first goal will likely be securing a place on the practice squad. From there, anything becomes possible. Every training camp produces a few surprises. Players arrive with little fanfare and gradually force coaches to take notice. Whether Brinson can become one of those stories remains to be seen, but he now has an opportunity to prove himself. Of course, as interesting as Brinson's situation may be, the bigger headline continues to revolve around George Pickens. His absence from OTAs generated attention almost immediately. Yet, according to those covering the team, there was very little surprise surrounding it. The reason is simple. These workouts are voluntary. That distinction often gets lost whenever attendance becomes a talking point during the off-season. Fans see a star player absent from practice and immediately wonder whether there's a problem. In this case, there appears to be little evidence suggesting concern. Reports from Cowboys observers indicated that Pickens was not present when activities began, but the reaction around the organization was largely calm because participation is not mandatory at this stage. The context surrounding Pickens' contract situation helps explain why people are paying attention anyway. Dallas placed a non-exclusive franchise tag on him back in February. He eventually signed the tag in late April, shortly after the draft. That agreement guarantees him a salary worth $3 million for the 2026 season. Financially, that's significant. Strategically, it creates an interesting dynamic between player and team. According to reports from ESPN's Jeremy Fowler, Pickens is seeking a long-term extension. Dallas, however, appears comfortable taking a different approach. Executive Vice President Stephen Jones made it clear that the organization plans to have Pickens play under the franchise tag and that long-term negotiations are not currently expected. That's a notable position. Whenever a player performs at an elite level and enters discussions about future contracts, attention naturally shifts toward long-term security. Players often want stability. Teams sometimes prefer patience. Dallas appears to be choosing patience. And from the organization's perspective, there may be logic behind that decision. After all, Pickens is coming off the most productive season of his career. The Cowboys now have an additional year to evaluate whether that performance represents the beginning of a new standard or simply the peak of a remarkable season. Either way, the relationship between player and organization remains one of the most important storylines on the roster. What's particularly interesting is that reports suggest Pickens has continued working with Dak Prescott away from the team facility. That detail matters. When evaluating off-season absences, context is everything. A player skipping voluntary activities while completely disconnecting from team preparation can create one narrative. A player continuing to work with his quarterback while staying away from voluntary practices creates a very different one. Based on the information available, the latter appears much closer to reality. That helps explain why expectations remain high for Pickens once mandatory activities begin later this month. And those expectations exist for good reason. Last season represented a major turning point in his career. Talent was never the question. Throughout his time in Pittsburgh, Pickens consistently showed flashes of high level ability. The production was solid, but many observers believed there was another level he had yet to reach. In 2025, everything finally seemed to come together. Working alongside Dak Prescott in Brian Schottenheimer's offense, Pickens produced the kind of season many had long anticipated. He caught 93 passes for 1,429 yards and 9 touchdowns. Those numbers earned him second team All-Pro recognition. More importantly, they changed the conversation around who he is as a player. Rather than being viewed simply as a talented receiver with potential, Pickens emerged as one of the league's premier offensive weapons. His partnership with CeeDee Lamb became a major strength for the Cowboys offense. In fact, there is a reasonable argument that Dallas featured one of the strongest receiving duos in football. What stood out even more was Pickens' performance when Lamb missed time. Those stretches provided a valuable test. Could Pickens handle the responsibilities that come with being the primary receiving threat? According to the results, the answer was yes. He demonstrated the ability to carry a larger workload and remain productive against defenses focused on slowing him down. That development may ultimately prove crucial for Dallas moving forward. The Cowboys entered the season believing they can compete for a playoff spot after finishing 7-9-1 last year. For that goal to become reality, Pickens will likely need to remain one of the focal points of the offense. That's why his contract situation remains fascinating. Another season similar to the one he just produced would significantly strengthen his long-term earning power. Reports already suggest his market value could exceed $30 million annually if he delivers another elite campaign. The conversation could become even bigger, but those discussions belong to the future. For now, Dallas is focused on preparing for the upcoming season. That preparation includes evaluating every player in the receiver room, from established stars to undrafted newcomers. And that's where the stories of Pickens and Brinson unexpectedly intersect. One player enters camp as one of the most important figures on the roster. The other arrives simply hoping to earn a chance. Yet both represent different parts of the same challenge facing the Cowboys. Dallas needs star power at the top of the depth chart. It also needs reliable depth behind it.
Pickens is expected to help determine how far this offense can go. Brinson will spend the coming months trying to prove he deserves to be part of that journey. Training camp will provide the answers. And while most eyes remain fixed on George Pickens, the Cowboys may have quietly added a player worth watching. Before we wrap up, here's the question for you. Should the Cowboys commit to a long-term extension for George Pickens right now? Or is Dallas making the right decision by waiting another season before negotiating a new deal?